everyone. Welcome to our first official episode.
Welcome. Yes. Thank you, Caitlin. This is our first official episode of Talking Blondes podcast. So if you came over here from listening to our recording or our intro, welcome, welcome. And if this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much. We have a very special topic we will be talking about today, and it's one of the main themes of Talking Blondes podcast, and it's vulnerability. And I think what's going to be really cool about having a deep dive discussion about vulnerability is Kayla and I actually have very different experiences growing up with vulnerability. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how it played a role in our lives from, young adult life and how it serves a purpose today. And I'm going to have Miss Caitlin here start off with her experience with vulnerability growing up.
Thank you, Virginia. And yeah, just to echo what Virginia said, whether you've seen our intro or this is your first time meeting us, hello. Welcome to the club. The more the merrier. We're so happy to have you joining us. And vulnerability see it as our bread and butter, which is why we both felt it was a perfect topic to just really start off our podcast with, because if we don't have vulnerability, we can't really bring the types of episodes and conversations that we want to the level of quality that we want without expressing vulnerability. So without further ado, so my experience with vulnerability from the time I was little, I believe that, we only know we form our perception of the world based on our immediate community from the time you're a child, right? So it's your family. It might be, maybe your neighbors if you're close with them, but it's pretty much your mom, dad, brother, sister, people like that you see in maybe extended family. And my experience with growing up was I had a family that was very into, and still is, very into wearing their hearts on their sleeve. So, this was the kind of situation where, it's like somebody has a bad day, well, you're going to know. Or somebody is elated about something or proud of something, or just there's something heavy on their heart, you are going to know. So, I grew up watching, my mother, my grandparents, my aunts, my cousins, all these people, we really didn't shove anything under the rug. And that was my normal. So, as a teenager, right, going into my young adulthood, it was something that, of course, emotions are all over the place as you hit puberty and everything, but I was like, yeah, well, I'm sad today. You're gonna know I'm sad. This person broke my heart. Everybody at school's gonna know, like things like that. But as time continued, I continued to grow up, and I found myself in the real world, so to speak, and I would be around, of course, new people. I might be making friends. I might be in the professional world, what have you, and of course I'm not saying, oh, share every little detail of your personal life with, Joe Schmo on the street. But one thing that I found quite surprising as someone who grew up with a family that put emotions very much at the core of our love and our bond and our connection with each other was how I would come into contact with many people who are not like that. And it's every now and then, okay, like, well, maybe that person's shy, or maybe that person, like, well, maybe they had a bad day, whatever. But it got to be this thing where I just remember thinking, wow, like I must have had this really different experience than a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying I'm, you know, it's not the most outlandish thing in the world to have a family that's very vulnerable, but I know that that's also maybe not the norm. I know that there are many people out there that grow up with a very different background. And so, I mean, I can think of times in the workplace when I was in my, early 20s where, people would say to me, like, immediately they would know if I was having a bad day. And I'd think, like, oh, I thought I was doing such a good job to cover it up, like, cause it's hard for me. And, it's not like I would lash out at work or something, but, they could just tell. And whether it's good or bad, I'm pretty sure at this stage of my life in my 30s, I will probably always be that person that you can pretty much tell, my poker face is not so good. If I'm happy or sad, this is what it is, or all the emotions in between. And so, yeah, for me, it was very challenging, I think, to kind of get to that place where I now know that not everybody is that way. Like friendships, there might be conflict and I'd want to talk about it. And I'd find a friend that's like, well, we don't need to talk about it, or like, we're fine, and I'd be like, no, but like, don't you want to like feel better after this and like talk, like how does it make you feel, and even relate, like especially relationships. Like I'm the person that wants to talk it all out. And I do think over the years I've gotten better. And it's a work in progress. I'm always learning and trying to challenge myself, but I do think I've gotten better at trying to gauge what is important to
Mm.
really open up about in this moment, and what can I maybe put a pin in, or what maybe do I not need to address because it's
Mhm.
not like the end of the world either way. So I can talk so much about this. And clearly I've got a lot of thoughts, but my own upbringing very much shaped, where I started with my view of vulnerability. I didn't even know what vulnerability was, but I was experiencing it. And of course, it has shaped how I have viewed it in my adult relationships. So I would love to hear your experience, Virginia, because I know that yours is not quite like mine. And I think that's one of the great things that you and I kind of both bring to the table is that we've had this conversation before, and I just think it's really interesting to hear the other side of the spectrum. So take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. Thank you so much for sharing too, because I love that that was part of your upbringing. I think that's so beautiful. And before I start, I have some questions for you, if you're okay with that.
Ooh, go for it. Go for it.
So one of my questions was, or yeah, that when you were realizing, whether in friendships or relationships, that you were coming from a different upbringing with vulnerability, did you find yourself like internalizing a lot that something's wrong with you, or did you have enough awareness that, oh, maybe this person just has, a different perspective on it, or was like a little bit of both?
That's a great question. I definitely think, at least in the beginning, there was some, I would even say some discomfort on my
Mm,
end. And I mean, being probably like I said, 12, 13-year old, something like that. Because to me, what I experienced was normal.
hmm
It's unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's that egocentric thing where it's like, my way, this is how everybody does it, and it's like, of course not. Like, wake
Yeah,
up call, hello.
yeah.
You could say that about anything really in life, but yeah, I do think there was some discomfort and some confusion.
Mm,
And then, of course, over time, definitely that sense of, okay, well, that's okay. Like,
hmm.
that person is just, they react differently to this situation, or they view this differently, and that's okay. That it's not a bad thing, or it's not a good thing. It's who they are.
Hmm.
Just like if I'm going to celebrate who I am, which has taken a long time to get to, and it's still an ongoing journey to keep doing that, of course, as it should be, I think. But, if I'm going to celebrate that, then I need to also acknowledge that this person over here might view it differently, and that's okay. So yeah, it started out as maybe a negative type thing, and then
Hmm.
it's of course transitioned over time, and you just try to apply empathy and
Yeah,
learn, and but also not push people to get to where they don't want to be,
right,
to meet
right.
you in that spot, because if they're not comfortable with that, that's okay. I can't make them be that way, and they don't ever have to be, but that's their decision, not mine. So.
Right. So do you feel like over time, with maybe maturing more and awareness, you were able to come to that realization that, you know what, this person, is just gonna do their thing, and if we still have a relationship, then they'll come around, and I'm here whenever they're ready. Did you kind of feel like that's how you were handling those kind of dynamics?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I will say, I can think of, close friends of mine. I'm definitely a feeler, right? So, like, close friends of mine are probably along that same line too.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean, oh, I'm not friends with, people who are who maybe don't wear their heart on their sleeve in that same way, or maybe
Hmm.
aren't as open, but I definitely think I've also found my people too, in
Yes,
a sense.
very
So,
important. Very important.
yeah.
I got one more question for you. If
Go
you're
for it.
um, willing to use an example of a situation, you don't have to go too much in detail, but of ever a time you were vulnerable and you felt like it actually kind of backfired on you.
Oh, yeah. Girl,
We got time.
how much time do we have?
The world. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. I have opened up, oh gosh. I mean, I don't maybe want to get into too much detail, but
Yes.
I can think of, um, I hate to say, I mean, dating situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like in my, especially in my mid 20s,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I can think of times where, I might share too much too soon.
Mm.
But I also kind of hate playing the game of like, no, I'm not gonna do that yet, like I hate that. So I know it's kind of a double-edged sword, but
Mm.
yes, I can absolutely think of times where, I might have opened up about things, or shared things that bothered me about someone else's behavior, or,
Okay.
whatever. And in my brain, I'm like, this is important, and this took a lot of courage,
Yeah.
and this is going to be a productive conversation. Right? Big fail. And that's okay. That's all right. Like, it's not on them, it's not on me. It's a
No.
mixture of a bunch of different things, and I'm glad those situations turned out the way they did, because I am where I am. I'm very happy. So yeah, at work, I'm sure there's things that I probably blocked from my memory, for good reason, but in my early 20s, especially, where I might have shared too much with, a coworker, and they're like, I just asked you, or I just asked how your morning's going. I don't
Oh
need
my
to know
God.
about this, that, and the other. So yeah, but
Oh.
it all comes with maturing. It all comes with learning from your mistakes and social cues, obviously, as weird as
Yes.
that sounds, but
No.
you
No.
just have to kind of learn as you go. There's no rule book as to how to navigate these things.
Yeah.
You just gotta go with it. So, good
Oh.
question.
Well, thank you for our little Q&A.
Of course.
But
And
Caitlin,
yeah,
I
to
think what
you.
no, well, I think what I love though is that despite, learning, right, all of all the things on how to, express vulnerability to certain people, and you learn that not everyone deserves access to you in that way either. Um,
Exactly.
But what I think is just so special is that because this is part of your core, your foundation is authentic vulnerability ever since you were a little girl. So there is it's so strengthened in you. So even though you may have had to face rejection or judgment from people from oversharing or being too much, it never stopped you and it never jaded you. And so I think that's just what's so beautiful, and it's a gift what you have, and you share it with the stranger on the street to your closest friend, and I love that so much, and I think our listeners and our viewers are really gonna appreciate your authentic vulnerability. So thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Made my day.
Well, Caitlin talked about I have a very different experience with vulnerability. Growing up, I will say for the most part, I did grow up with a very affectionate family. So we had no problem giving each other affection, physical touch. We were intimate family in that sense. It was interesting though, because I don't ever feel like we were emotionally intimate. So even though lots of hugging and kissing and, wanting to physically be present with one another, I, from my perspective, I don't feel like I grew up emotionally vulnerable. So I never felt like I could really express other emotions besides happiness. And that anything that was personal going on had to be kept to yourself. So I felt like there was a lot of pressure from keeping it in the family, behind closed doors. We sweep that under the rug. And for empaths, that can be like poison that you're ingesting because you're like, I this doesn't feel right. Like this doesn't feel safe. This doesn't feel comfortable. Like I feel like, people should know or that we should look to, for help. And when you're kind of like as a young child can kind of feel that like that pressure or that fear is instilled in you of not, being vulnerable or opening sharing or, sharing openly, then you're going to carry that with you well into your adulthood. And so my experience with vulnerability was more of like it was perceived as a weakness and that people will weaponize your vulnerability, so use it against you, which has been my experience. And it's very hurtful to go through that. There's also using vulnerability as a manipulative tactic. So perhaps you're sharing, not like Caitlin, where it's authentic, but you're sharing because you are performing and you're seeking validation, or you're, looking to someone to feed into your victim narrative. And so I know it's like we go from, the bright side of vulnerability, and there is a dark side to it, but not because of vulnerability. I don't think vulnerability is in itself a negative. I actually think it's, like I stated to Caitlin, it is strength, it is beauty, it is exactly why we're able to connect with other human beings. There's empathy, there's compassion, there's understanding, and it brings people closer together. If vulnerability comes from a wounded place, like it was for me, you'll get very defensive easily, and you're hypercritical of yourself. And it's something that I had to learn over time, but it wasn't learning by like intellectualizing vulnerability. It was learning by feeling it, what it actually meant to feel it for the first time, not being numb to it. And, like like Caitlin was saying, there's no rule book on how we can navigate it. So like someone, that you share something close and personal with, they may be like, wow, that was a lot and wasn't expecting that, or could be like, you know, um, well, I'm gonna, use that against you. It's scary. I guess in a way it is kind of like taking a risk. Um, I guess I guess with that, it's like maybe ask yourself questions, which would be like a form of self-awareness. So like, why do I want to share this with this person? Do I need to share this? Is it really imperative right now that I talk about this? Is this more to like appease me, or do I really want to bring this up because I really want to like come up with a solution? I know it sounds like, kind of silly, but I actually think that's part of um, emotional maturity. And like Caitlin was saying, like not everyone, even your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your best friend, you still don't have to like emotionally dump on them all the time.
Right.
So it is kind of like, okay, like, you know, I really just want to get this off my chest. And a lot of the times it's really to make us feel better, right? We're just
Amen,
hoping
sister. Amen.
we're just hoping that the person we're doing it to is mentally and emotionally strong enough to take all of that and be like, I still love you, but okay. And I've done that so many times to my husband, God bless him, where I'm just like, bleh. And then I'm like, gosh, I feel so much better. And he's just like,
He's like,
I am
how
not
do
your
you make us feel
therapist.
like crap?
I feel personally victimized. Um,
Right, right.
and so, because I guess okay, I guess what I'm really trying to say is even though your intentions may be good with sharing and opening up, you could still be the drainer and draining energy from your loved ones. Okay? So I was the drainer. And so when you realize that, like, oh, well, I don't want to be draining energy from a loved one. I want to be replenishing. I want to build up. And this is why I was proposing of just asking yourself, these questions. And if you just take the time to ask those questions, and if your answer still leads to like, yeah, I gotta share this, or you know what, it's not really that important to share. I think that it, I think that really helps a lot with relationships and with friendships. And so, but I had a very vulnerable moment in my life. It was not relationship related, even though there was some vulnerability with that. But what stands out to me the most was it was work related. And Caitlin, you shared that, while you've been at work, people, even though you might have masked, like how you were really feeling that day, people are still picking up an energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also important to understand that people can definitely sense your energy. You don't have to say anything. You may think like you're like totally hiding it, but there are people who are very in tuned and are energy people, and they can pick up on those things, and you're like, I feel so seen. I'm so exposed. And it's scary. So there was this time at work and my mental health was on the decline, and it was showing. At first, it was very subtle, in my opinion, but then it really started showing physically, because I would just show up to work like I just didn't even care anymore, and people were concerned, but I thought people were concerned and trying to like force me out of a job, uh, to kind of use this information, that I was no longer equipped for my job. And I gotta tell you, I didn't really have any proof of anybody thinking that or doing that. This was just my own wounded self, being like, oh my gosh, like they're coming after me. And I remember being very defensive about it instead of just being like, you know what? I don't know what's going on with me. I feel like I'm really struggling with something that I can't quite explain, and I don't know what to do about it. I have learned so far, more than likely, you will have more support than not. I really do feel like people, and to the best of their ability, maybe it's just listening. That's all. Just listening. Just being present while you just get to be like, huh, something's really wrong and I don't know what's going on, and that's that. You might be surprised what people are willing to do to help you in your moment of need. And it could be like, wow, I had no idea. Because that's another thing I think we have to keep in mind. Everyone's walking around with their own stuff. So if you think you're on everybody's radar for, acting different, looking different, I mean, you're not really until you're vulnerable enough to let this person in, to let them know, like, yeah, I'm really struggling and I don't know what to do and I could use some help. I do feel like that will be far more reciprocated than the alternative when you're defensive and you're upset and negative, and people can still care for you, but they're also going to be like, I can't work with that. Um, like that's I can't work with that. But me stating that I don't know what's going on or I need help with this, you actually will find that to be far more productive and proactive. And people will be like, yeah, like let's see what I can do. So that's been my experience with vulnerability, and I know it's completely different, but that's why I think it's so cool that we just have totally different perspectives on it. So,
Okay, so first off, thank you for sharing.
mhm.
Second off, I have like, I don't know how many questions for you. So your turn. Third off, real quick, because I love what you said there. I just have to call out what you said there about people will appreciate you, you know, kind of opening up and being vulnerable, right?
Mhm.
Um, rather than, being closed off in whatever way and, not giving them any inclination as to why. And then they're just left with, well, that person's really difficult. I'm gonna kind of keep to myself over here.
Mhm.
I just want to say first off, you hit that spot on. Um, Second off, real quick about that, and then I'll get to my questions for you. Um, Earlier today, of course, in what's the word I'm looking for? Prep and inspiration mode for this episode. I rewatched my favorite TED Talk ever with Brene Brown. I believe it's probably one of the most viewed ever. So
Yeah.
odds are everyone else listening has heard it, or at least heard of it, or at least heard of Brene Brown. One of
Mhm.
those three. But it's all about vulnerability, and there's so many things that we could talk about and touch upon that she herself discussed. And I should say too, um, she was originally studying sociology,
Mhm.
and she came into this whole conflict where she's a very factual person. She's very black and white. I need to explain away everything. I need to prove something. I need to see it to prove that it exists. And then she came
Mhm.
across vulnerability, and she goes like, well, what do I do with this?
Yep.
And of course, her whole TED talk kind of was inspired by that. But
Mhm.
I just want to like give a little prep intro before I say this. So during her TED talk, she talks about how we are wired for connection. That is
Mhm.
why we're here.
Yeah.
Yes, we need our me time. Yes, we can't be in someone's face 24/7 and expect them to
Mhm.
not go, running for the hills or vice versa. But we are here, mankind has made it because we have found this connection and this need for being close to each other. And
Hmm.
so she said, of course, going off of that, that vulnerability, building that connection, opening up about whether it's your feelings or something that happened to you, or sharing something, saying, being the first to say I love you,
Hmm.
to your partner, whatever it may be. These are the things that keep us thriving in life. And
Yes.
so people will see that authenticity and that openness that you were just talking about, Virginia. And of course, like Virginia said, not everybody's going to be able to meet you where they are.
Hmm.
Also, to your point, like most people are not walking around thinking, "Whoa, what's Virginia doing today? Oh, she doesn't look that happy. Oh, shoot." Like one thing I remind myself, which I wish my middle school self really
Oh.
understood, and even high school self, no one's thinking about you as much as you're thinking about you.
Yeah.
Think about that. So it really, I mean, it's not the most fun thing to think about, I guess, but it's also a great way to put things in perspective, right? Like it
Hmm.
helps you kind of maybe take things less personally sometimes. Like, oh, they don't see that I'm dealing with XYZ. Yeah, but they might be also dealing with XYZ
Mm.
and ABCDEF, like a million things.
Yeah.
So again, I could go on a big tangent. I will digress. I have a lot of thoughts, but thank you for sharing that, Virginia. And I do. I find your background with vulnerability and your experience very interesting. And I definitely think that people listening, my hope is that, whether it's my experience or yours, that there will be people who can identify. And I'm sure there's some, middle ground there too.
Hmm.
Um, but my thoughts and questions, I guess, for you. So, growing up with that kind of mindset of like we're only going to show the positive and we're going to kind
Hmm.
of sweep things under the rug and everything, you know, and I, as someone who knows you quite well and is honored to know you, I know you now as a person who you wear your vulnerability proudly. And it has taken a lot for you to get to that point, and I'm so proud of you for that. When did that, I guess my first question for you is when did that sort of transition start to take place for you, where you went from kind of this, oh, we're not going to ever talk about it, or we're only going to show the good,
Hmm.
to no, this is actually a really empowering thing. And I'm going to
Mm.
talk about it in a podcast.
Yeah.
When did you get to that? And how did that happen? Like, as much as you would
Oh,
like to share, as much as you feel like sharing.
great question. Okay, so I want to make sure I understand the question right. It's how did I go from basically closing off, I guess, my authentic self and just putting on this performance of this perfect, positive person, um, to making the jump to being more authentic, and vulnerable and embracing, maybe the imperfections in that, which is what Brene Brown talked about.
Yes.
Because it is, yeah.
Yeah, and I realize that that can be a very, lengthy over time experience,
Hmm.
but even to that point, was there even an incident where you were like, nope, I'm not going to do this anymore. I need to kind of
Yeah.
trying to think of how to phrase it, but I think you get what I'm saying.
I think I do. I think when I realized in my healing journey, and I know that's also very like broad, like healing journey, but it kind of sums up, exactly that timeline that you're talking about. So during my healing, I realized that, being that closed off and being that numb, was like a disease to my mind, my body, and my heart. And so by, doing a lot of inner child healing, and again, I know that's also a broad statement because there's so much that goes into it, which we will talk about, on future episodes of our podcast. Um, but I was able to express authentic vulnerability through healing those child wounds. And also had a lot to do with my relationship, my marriage with my husband. And so he probably is, to me, the first person that I ever felt like I could be totally myself with. Like the mask came off, the shield came down, and with him, he embraces authentic vulnerability. So anytime I would put like this front on of being like, defensive and critical and negative, he would reject that. So that was his emotional boundary. Like, oh, okay, you're going to do that. All right, well, I'm not going to entertain it. So when you're done with that, I'll be here. And I never had anyone like challenge me in that way. So I'm like, hmm, interesting. And then, of course, through maturity and growth and healing, I went from like probably trying to, in my own maybe subconscious ways, definitely use vulnerability as a manipulative tactic, which is why I brought it up earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And this is what Brene Brown talked about in her TED Talk as shame.
Mm-hmm.
So most of us are not, we're choosing to not be vulnerable because there's shame with what it is we're hiding, what it is that we don't want to be exposed and have people see this other side to us that we maybe have done such a great job putting on this performance, right? Of like, I have it all together and I'm this like super amazing human being. And when really, like, we're all flawed. And so it was just interesting that I attracted somebody who, that's their strength in being vulnerable in an authentic way and has the courage to just be themselves and be able to express things or talk about things that most of us are like like I can't believe like you just said that. And for someone who like myself who put on this act, this performance for so long, and it was a false identity, but it's what protected me, it's what kept me safe, and it's what made me feel like I was ahead of everybody or like two steps ahead, nobody can hurt me, and then being with my husband who's the complete opposite. It kind of, for me, at some point during the healing journey, that I had to make a decision that, if I really want this relationship to work, I have to learn to be vulnerable in an authentic way. And I have to trust this relationship. I have to trust this person, but ultimately I have to trust myself. And
Yeah.
so I feel like, for those who can relate, we struggle with trusting ourselves. And so I think through a lot of like, yes, the healing the inner child wounds, but like a lot of like grounding and centering myself too, to really like regulate my nervous system and to like really trust my gut instinct, that I can be vulnerable and there's a lot of strength in it. And I'm able to say on this podcast that I was one of those people who used it as a manipulative tactic. You could not catch me saying that years ago because I would have tried to put on this front that I was this like, healed person who could just never relate to such a, negative stigma. And I'm like, no, that was me. I did that. I own that. And I think when you do that, when you operate that way, what can be done at that point? I mean,
Yeah.
really, what can be
Yeah.
done? You just
Yeah.
laid it all out. You're like naked and raw at this point. What's gonna happen? Someone
Right.
goes, oh my God, like I can't believe that. That's so bad. Like, no shit. But I'm not that person anymore, so if you want to hold that against me, go for it. But I'm able to speak from that with not as much shame, but more love for myself, really, and compassion for other people who can relate to, how my experience was growing up with vulnerability. So
I
we
love
all
that.
we all deserve that chance when we put in the work. So I can safely
Absolutely.
say that.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh, I'm loving this.
No.
Oh
I hope
my
I answered
goodness.
your question.
You did.
A
No,
long-winded answer.
you absolutely did. And I think it's so beautiful that you found such a wonderful life partner
Thank
who
you.
balances you out. I mean, in many ways, you
Mhm.
two are so similar and it's so freaking cute. And then in other ways, like you just said, he helped challenge you, and he
Mhm.
also gave you a safe space. I
Yes.
shouldn't say gave, gives.
Yeah, he provided.
It's not like,
Mhm.
oh, it should stop right when Virginia feels like she's all right to share, what's on
Right,
her
right.
heart. He gives you a safe space.
He
And
does.
I think that is absolutely what everybody really wants at the end of the day. So that's huge.
Thank
I
you.
love that. Thank you for sharing.
Of
I
course.
had kind of the same question you had for me, but somewhat of the reverse.
Mhm.
So were there moments, and if so, go as be as specific as you want, but also be as vague as you want. That's okay. Were there moments where kind of a discomfort in vulnerability, not to put words in your mouth, but somewhat of that background
Mhm.
kind of backfired on you.
Mhm.
We're both like, oh yeah.
Yes, I love that so much. The eyes, and then
Yeah.
it's
Woo.
relationship based. Shocking. Um,
Oh sure. Oh sure.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the question. Yes, okay. So our viewers, our listeners, you're romantically involved with someone, or maybe something is like, progressing, but you haven't quite really shared like your true feelings just yet. This is before my husband Andrew, by the way. Um, and you're just dancing around it, right? Nobody's really has the courage to really just straight up be like, I like you. I like you a lot. I think we should date. We talk about how that would be so refreshing if people were just like more direct about what they wanted, and then we like freak out when they do, like and it's like, what do we want? What do we really want? I really felt like, okay, once I tell this person how I really feel, things will be so much better. Dum dum dum. Things were not. Here I am going, I'm going to release this big, feeling inside of me that I like you and I want to be with you and I think we should date. And it's the response was, no. And you're like, kill me now. Kill me now. I don't, no, no, yep, I'm gonna have to kill you too as well because I just shared this with you and nobody can know that I was rejected. Nobody. Everyone, I'm burning this city down
I'm gonna move to a new country, dye my hair,
to a new
change
country.
my name, learn a new language, and then I'll be fine.
Which is kind of what I did. I ended up like moving out of state. Not directly because of that, but it definitely factored in. But wow, like here I am thinking, and my anxiety is going to be gone, and it's just finally here. It's my moment, and I was rejected. He was not cruel about it by any means. In fact, I really appreciate that he had more awareness than I did about our situationship and how it probably would not have been healthy for us to have pursued it any further. But of course, it was crushing. Like, this
Oh yeah.
was someone I really fell hard for, like, first time ever. and I finally expressed something I've never expressed before to anybody. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, like, I'm gonna feel so good. I'm gonna be in a relationship and all my problems are gonna be solved. And it totally backfired. But at the same time, I know we can be us girls like Caitlin over here is doing like
Yeah.
it. I love it. But at the same time, I'm like, it's okay. It's
It
okay
is.
because, again, I was being vulnerable. It was coming from an authentic place for the first time, probably in my young adult life. So if we have to reframe this, and that is what we do on this podcast, I got to feel, really feel. I wasn't numb. I wasn't closed off. I wanted this person. I wanted to let them in, and I did. The outcome may have not been what I was expecting, and this is why it's so important for our viewers, our listeners, to take away that you may not still get the desired outcome, even from being vulnerable, but please don't let that stop you. Because if I let that stop myself, then I wouldn't be here today. And Caitlin wouldn't be here in a thriving, loving relationship herself. So I know there's a lot of pain and growth. There are no shortcuts or easy way outs. But if I really had to like reflect on that time, and what brings me more joy is that I felt love. Now, it's not the kind of love that I think that would have been sustainable or healthy. I have that love with my husband, and that's why I felt like I was being protected and redirected to him later in life. That this person was not going to get access to me in that way. But my husband gets to. So he was the person I feel like was always meant to be the one for that. But yeah, I got to tell someone I really, really like them and I really want to be with them. To me, that is something to celebrate. So,
Absolutely.
and and this person, we don't know what happened to him. He is,
He's kicking himself right now.
yeah, totally. No, no, but
Girl, I just have to say, I'm again, love everything you just shared. I think too, well, first off, we love the word reframing. So get ready to hear a lot of it. Reframing is basically taking a situation that you have experienced and the outcome perhaps was not what you wanted, or the way you're feeling perhaps is a pretty sucky feeling. It's
hmm.
taking that and it is, I mean, not literally, but it is in your mind, reframing it in a way that is positive and helps you to grow and
Yes,
see the positivity behind it and the hope and the opportunity that it presents.
absolutely.
I didn't get X job. I'm very sad. I'm hurt. I'm this, I'm that. I feel, I feel disappointed. I'm no good. I'm this, I'm that. No, that's not true. I'm going to find something that I'm better suited for. That's an example of reframing. And
Yes.
typically when we talk about it, it's much more of an emotional situation, but that's just kind of a black and white example for everyday situations. So Virginia, I have to kind of add to what you were talking about too, where you were saying, you opened up to this person and you told them how you felt and you got rejected.
I did.
Listen, like this is the thing that I think we don't want to celebrate the feeling of rejection, right? That's not what we're going for. But there is so much bravery that
Yeah.
comes with doing what you did. You need bravery to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And I think I'm very proud of the way that I believe I believe vulnerability is being embraced more and more in society. But I
Hmm.
do think, there is still a very ugly connotation that comes with it. Oh, I'm weak. Oh, I'm not enough.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm this, I'm that. I can't. I have to be strong and have a mental, emotional armor, and I can't
Yeah.
express this. I'm not literally, the whole poker face thing. I'm not gonna show my cards. I'm gonna make him show
Hmm.
them first or whatever.
Yeah.
Screw that. Like, I mean, sure, there's a time and place. I'm not, like I said earlier, you don't just go exposing everything and opening your heart up to the first person you meet, or someone that is not going to be kind to you. That goes without saying. But what you did took a lot of strength. It took a lot of courage. And that's what we need to remind ourselves when we think about the idea of being vulnerable. It's sure there is some I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this. There's definitely there are definitely people out there who use it in an ugly way,
Hmm.
or who hide behind it, almost like it's a crutch.
Yeah.
But that's not authentic, and that's not actual vulnerability. And I think that might be putting a bad taste in people's mouths, for lack of a better phrase that I can think of right now, because I'm on my tangent. I think that unfortunately we've kind of gone down that path of like, oh, they were vulnerable, they couldn't help it, so they did XYZ, and they don't want to take any responsibility for their actions. That's
Yes.
not what this is. That's
Yes.
And
Hmm.
to be fair, if someone is going through something heavy and they are doing things that are out of character, I'm not diminishing that. I'm not saying, oh, that person is a terrible person, or they're wrong, or they're the worst. That's not what I'm saying. That Not at all. There's a different podcast episode for something like that coming up perhaps one day. But for the sake of this topic, we are talking about showing up as you are,
Hmm.
and knowing that you're taking a risk, but doing it anyway. And that, my friends, that is what this is about. And Virginia, that's what you did, girl. And you can go one of two ways. You can have that happen, and then you can be like, well, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
Or you can have that happen, take some time to be sad, because right, we're all going to be sad when we get rejected. We're not just going
Hmm.
to go home and have a party. But you can be sad, you can let yourself feel the things, and then you can be like, all right, I'm going to get back on my horse, and I'm going to keep doing
Yeah.
me, and I'm going to
Yeah.
be open again, whether it's a relationship, a friendship, a job, some amazing opportunity that comes your way. You're not going to just cower because it could go wrong.
Yes.
It could backfire. Yes,
Yeah.
but it could also go right. And
Hmm.
that's also reframing as well. So,
Yes. I love that. Thank you for sharing and adding that because I think that's so important. And you brought up some things that like yeah, the whole like use vulnerability as a crutch or having negative stigma around it. I've had this like scenario playing in my head and I know like relationship based situations are maybe the most I don't know, prevalent to people than anything else, especially, if our audience are anywhere if they're 20s, 30s, 40s. So maybe it's safe to say that, using a relationship scenario might make more sense. So I kept thinking like, okay, so, you know, phones, just hear me out. Say you have a tendency to go through your partner's phone, okay? Because that's your own issue, trust issue, with your partner. So for argument's sake, your partner has not done anything, or said anything to make it seem like they are doing something not trustworthy. This is all the person who is going through their phone. This is all their internal trust issues. Okay, they get caught. All right, person who has the phone is like, why do you do that? Why do you go through my phone? If I have to be vulnerable, it's because of my childhood wounds and when my dad, left my mom or, whatever comes up and like, it's just it's really not me. It's that goes through your phone. So, feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
And partner's like, okay, well, I don't appreciate it and I need you to stop because you're
Hmm.
breaking trust with me.
Hmm.
And the other person who's like, oh, but I'm being vulnerable with you. That should be the main focus, not me going through your phone. And it's like, oh, okay. So I see you're twisting it and making it more about. So I'm bringing this scenario up because it's like going back to the whole, using vulnerability as a manipulative tactic. I want to let people know that if you identify more with the person who has the phone and your partner's going through it and you're going through a situation like that, you have every right to call out for what it is. You do not need to be suckered into like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that was what happened to you. And no, I totally get it. Like, if you want to go through my phone anytime, like, don't worry. Like, don't enable. Don't enable. You can call it out and
Yes.
be like, yeah, I don't appreciate that. And if that's going to be a problem, then we have something that we need to address. Um, and if your significant other is trying to make it all about like, oh, then you must have something on the phone that, you're keeping from me. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so protective. Again, you can stay firm with your emotional boundaries and be like, yeah, that's a violation of privacy and you're crossing boundaries. You obviously have access to my phone whenever you want. You have the passcode. So obviously, I'm not hiding anything. So
Hmm.
either you need to like grow up and go talk to somebody about this, like a therapist, or you can work with a life coach. Um,
I know a great
and
one.
yeah, and learn to be an adult in an adult, mature, healthy relationship. So,
Yeah.
that's a tangent, and I'm not sure if
A
it
good
was
one,
super
though. A good one.
helpful or productive, but I just felt like, I can totally see how people could twist vulnerability
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
working for them and, in their situation. So,
Yeah.
like
Or
I used to do.
absolutely. I mean, emotional cheating too, right? Like, oh, well, you were away for work and he was
Oh, yeah.
there and I was, I needed to open up to someone and I mean, there's so much. There's so many different things that people can do and have done and I'm sure will do again and and that's just kind of the way life goes. But we hope that, over time, we're all getting better and better. And this is the kind of thing that no one is perfect at. No one is going to show up. If you could have a report card on vulnerability, no one's ever going to get an A plus 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 with extra credit on top of that. But it's the kind of thing where hopefully as we grow and mature and we continue to connect with those we love and those we meet, hopefully it's something that we do as with any skill set, you sharpen your
Yeah.
tool, or as with any tool, you sharpen your tools in your toolbox, as any skill, you hopefully get stronger in that. I think that there's a lot of emphasis that really, we have placed on this, but we could also continue to place upon this. I could talk and talk and talk, as it's probably clear. You're listening to Talking Blondes, just so you know. So this is what you signed up for, okay? But
Oh,
but really, back to what I was kind of saying when we first started out this episode, we are not going to be perfect and we're not here to pretend to you or lie or nod and smile and just think, okay, I hope I sound good because trust me, that's not gonna cut it for me, for you, for anybody listening. It's not happening. I would hate to watch or listen to something like that. Um, but we just want to be upfront when we can, as much as we can, in hopes that maybe it's relatable, but also, you know, we know that no one's going to trust us unless we are open. No one's
Hmm.
going to want to hear us unless we're authentic. And so we figured this would be a really good topic to just start and kick things off with because, we plan on bringing vulnerability to every conversation. And sure, there's going to be maybe episodes where one of us wants to dive deeper than the other, and that's okay. Like we're gonna get where we're comfortable with, and maybe we'll challenge each other, and that's cool too.
Yeah.
But also we really hope that whoever's listening, maybe we can challenge you in some way.
Hmm.
The first step is thinking like maybe there's something to this. Maybe you haven't really been all that vulnerable in recent years, or you're like, oh, just another stupid mental health buzzword. I'm over it. Like I get it because I've been there, and I know it might not sound like I have. I know I talked about my family being hard on their sleeves kind of people, but I did roll my eyes about like, oh, like when I first heard vulnerability. Okay, sure, like don't be. You always hear the phrase, "Don't be vulnerable. Don't be vulnerable." Like and that's such garbage. There's a time and place, of course, but it's garbage most of the time. And so, we hope that we can create an inviting, welcome space for these types of conversations. Maybe, get people thinking and just, I don't know, being more vulnerable in their own lives.
Hmm.
So we're here for it. We're here for it.
We are. And I'm sure, like Caitlin was saying, oh, I'm not sure. I know vulnerability will come up many, many times. But if you feel like you could use a whole other podcast episode on like a vulnerability part two, let us know. But I think we're gonna end it here. And in the show notes, we will include the Brene Brown TED Talk on vulnerability.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just want to thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. We really, as hopefully you're feeling what we're feeling too, just being like lit up about talking about these things like vulnerability, and we hope that we we're able to shed some light and love on it, and you just got to hang out with us and be vulnerable with us. So.
Yes, absolutely. And the conversation doesn't stop here. Please visit our socials. We'll have that linked in the show notes as well. You can also send us an email. We have that as well. There's all kinds of different ways we can get this conversation going and
Hmm.
continued. More vulnerability. It's coming your way, whether it's an episode or not. It'll still be featured. And we're so happy you could just hang out with us, whether you're on your treadmill or in the car or hanging out at home, watching, whatever you're doing. Thank you for spending our first episode with us.
Our first official episode of
Yeah,
Talking Blondes. This is so
yeah.
exciting, and thank you so much for just yeah, spending time with us and listening to this and watching this episode. Stay tuned for the next one. And again, if you follow us on our socials, then you'll get all the updates and all the things. So stay tuned, and we appreciate you guys so much.
Bye, everyone. Take care.